To show you a method I've found for accurately and easily counting birds in a photograph. This method might look quite complicated, but once you know how to do it, it is much easier and more accurate than counting birds in the field. In the field it can be very easy to lose track of which birds you've counted, especially when they are moving around, sometimes in opposite directions, and you are looking at a narrow, magnified image, trying to keep note of landmarks to remember which birds you have counted. The photograph I have here is of a large flock of pink-footed geese that I took through my telescope. I used my mobile phone on a panoramic camera setting, and I found that this has enabled me to take a very wide but highly magnified image suitable for counting birds in a flock. The software I'm using is called GIMP. It is a very powerful program that resembles Photoshop and also uses non-destructive image manipulation methods. Users can edit layers separately and superimpose partially transparent layers onto the original image. Today I'm going to add transparent layers to my image, mark these layers with non-transparent dots of different colours, and use the histogram function of the software to count the number of pixels and allow me to derive a count of the number of birds in the photograph. I don't intend to provide a full tutorial of how to use GIMP, but the software's website provides a useful manual, and there are lots of relevant tutorials on YouTube. GIMP's interface is very customizable, and so your interface will probably look quite different to mine when you open it, so I would urge you to stay calm and read the manual. I'm quite certain that the processes can be applied equally well to some other image processing software such as Photoshop. The first thing that I shall do is to add a transparent layer for each species that I am counting. I suggest using different layers and different colours for each. If the flock is well mixed, it makes more sense to stick to one species at a time rather than switching layers repeatedly. If for a few individuals of other species, it might be easier to switch layers as you go along, or tally those less numerous species by a more traditional method. Firstly, I add a layer for pink-footed geese. I like to name my layers so I can tell which I'm working with more easily. Go to New Layer. Layer name pink-footed geese. It's already entered because I've done this before. You'll see here layer fill type dialog says it's set to transparency, which is exactly what I need. So there we go. Now I shall select the histogram tab, and you will see by following my cursor that the pixels count here is 0. This is because the layer is currently completely transparent and will remain so until I start marking the birds on this layer using the pencil tool. Now I make sure that I've selected the pencil tool. The pencil tool is perfect because it marks the same number of pixels irrespective of how long you press the cursor on the image. This is not always the case with the brush and airbrush tools. Make sure that you have a good size to use for marking the birds. This should be big enough to see easily, but small enough that you can fit the marks onto the image without them overlapping, which would give a bad count, or require you to displace them away from the corresponding birds, which makes it harder to know which you have marked and if you have done so correctly. For this image, I found the 60 pixels pencil works very well. Now I mark a single bird. Just make sure this is selected. It goes blue when it's ready for editing. So just marked a single bird. I go to the histogram tab, and looking at the pixels count now, you'll see that it's gone to 2801. It's worth making a note of that right at the start, because you will need to you'll need to divide your total count of pixels by 2801 to get your total number of birds. So then I go through my image and give my picture measles. Even by this method, the process can be quite subjective, as it can be hard to judge what is an unmarked bird and what is another part of the partially obscured bird that you have already marked. Note the dark heads in the grass that I shall assume correspond to complete birds that require marking. You can change the visibility of these layers by pressing on the eye icons at the side here. I'm going to add another layer for barnacle geese, just so you can see me do that again. So layer name, barnacle geese, layer fill type, transparent. Okay, I'm going to use a different colour. And so select barnacle geese. I don't actually have any barnacle geese in this, but I'm just going to mark them as hypotheticals so that you can see it can be done. Notice here I can change the transparency. I've removed my fictional barnacle geese from the view here, and the idea is, as I say, you go into the histogram. This is for barnacle geese. See that I've got 14,005 pixels. If I divide that by 2,801, then I'll find that I have 5 individuals. I mean, obviously I can count them easily here, but if I show you the size of this image, then you'll find that counting these dots is also quite a time consuming and annoying hassle. Well, I hope you found this tutorial useful, and thank you for watching.